The Sooners lose in Ames for the first time since the Eisenhower administration. I'm Barry Tramel, along with OU writer Ryan Aber. We're back in our Ames, Iowa hotel rooms after the Sooners on Saturday night lose to Iowa State 37-30. And Ryan, not since 1960 has Oklahoma lost a football game at Iowa State, but it happened tonight.
Yeah, it's been a long, long time. The last time Oklahoma lost up here, I believe, Dwight Eisenhower was president. Bud Wilkinson was coaching the Sooners in that game. So it's been a long, long time. But Matt Campbell's Cyclones are a lot different than a lot of those Iowa State teams over the last few decades, and they showed it yet again tonight, pulling off this victory.
Well, yeah, the last couple of trips here have been tough wins for the Sooners in 16 and 18. Of course, the last two games in Owen Field have been nail biters. Oklahoma lost 38-31 in 17, won 42-41 a year ago. But this Sooner team just isn't quite up to the standard of the last five Big 12 championship teams that Lincoln Riley and Bob Stoops produced. This is a team that is not quite as efficient offensively and has the same leaky defense. And tonight we had a 95-yard kickoff return go against Oklahoma that shifted momentum and propelled Iowa State to a 14-0 run in the last 7.5 minutes of this game.
Yeah, Iowa State seemingly had the momentum for much of this game after OU jumped out ahead early, but even then you felt like they weren't ahead nearly as much as they should have been by that point. Iowa State comes up and takes the lead. And for what was it, about a 10-play stretch there, Oklahoma regained momentum with a long Gabe Burkich field goal. They finally get that defensive turnover that they've been looking for so long, and then go right down and score. But that momentum lasted just seconds because the long kickoff return, and then from there, everything went the Cyclones' way. And OU was never able to recover. Like you said, this defense or this offense isn't as good as the offense that we've seen under Lincoln Riley in the past, and their defense is as bad as it's been in a while. And they let go several chances at turnovers tonight, other chances, especially in the secondary. Pat Fields, notably, with a couple of dropped interception tries, and then penalties like crazy on both sides of the ball, but especially in the secondary. All the defensive penalties were committed by the secondary, and the offensive line really struggled with penalties as well.
Yeah, the Iowa State took advantage of OU's smallish safeties. Charlie Kolar, the great 6'6" tight end for Iowa State from Norman North, of all places, had a big game, drew a bunch of penalties. And Breece Hall, their lightning quick tailback, broke a bunch of tackles. The tackling was very poor tonight by the Sooners. And then on offense, we saw pretty good offense most of the night, but the clutch gene was gone. Last two times Oklahoma gets the ball, they can't score. And same script as a week ago. And now OU finds itself 0-2 in the Big 12 Conference.
Yeah, for the first time since 1998 when John Blake was coaching the Sooners. It's been a long time since the Sooners have been 0-2 in the Big 12. Heck, it's been a long time since the Sooners have lost consecutive games, and that came in Bob Stoops' first year. So OU generally has bounced back pretty well, but didn't tonight for the reason you mentioned. I mean, tackling wasn't really one of the issues that the Sooners had last week against the Wildcats. They were just not in the right spot, and Kansas State found a lot of open real estate to run with. Tonight, though, OU just couldn't tackle it all, couldn't make the big plays in the secondary, and then afterwards, Pat Fields sort of let his frustration show when talking about some of the penalties and stuff, and says, hey, when you're 5'10", 5'11", it's really hard to defend against 6'5" and 6'6" guys without committing a penalty, and you have to be physical or you're going to let up a catch. And Pat Fields was one of the ones who was called for, I can't remember if it was a pass interference or a holding on Charlie Kolar there in the end zone. Pat Fields 5'11", Charlie Kolar 6'6". OU's secondary recruiting has focused much more in the past couple of years on getting bigger guys, but we haven't seen much of those guys on the field. Tonight, Woody Washington, who's a safety, and OU struggled at safety, like you mentioned, uh, was inserted for a little bit, but it was at corner where they went with Woody Washington and Trey Norwood for a spell. So there's been some clamoring, especially on social media. Heck, we saw a couple of OU players tweet about this after the game on maybe giving some of those young defensive backs a try and maybe seeing if they can sink or swim.
Well, whatever ails the Sooners, it needs to get fixed quick. Texas is next. The Longhorns are hurting. Texas 1-1 in the Big 12 and is a 15-point rally. The only thing keeping Texas from being 0-2 is a 15-point rally in the last minutes at Tech a week ago. So going to be a strange Red River with both of these teams struggling. Hey, stay tuned for further OU football coverage here on Oklahoman.com and every day in the Oklahoman.